Hello everyone, I'm back from Germany. I actually considered doing a small intro in Deutsch, but after giving that a try, I realized it was just a terrible idea. Every day I woke up in Germany, I check the standings for the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, and what do I see? I see Anish Giri in the first place. And I already thought when I get back home I'm gonna make a nice video about Anish Giri leading the Tata Steel Chess Tournament 2018. And of course, what happens? I get home and Anish Giri draws his game and he is no longer in the lead. But it was nice seeing him in the lead for the first 5 rounds. Here we have a game between Baskaran Adhiban and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and it's an extremely high-level game, very entertaining. I didn't think I would do a video today as I'm really tired, but then I thought again, and then I realized it was best to do at least one chess video. We got up at like 4 a.m. today, and we had to go from Bad Pyrmont to Hanover to catch a train to take us to the airport, and then all of a sudden the train was just cancelled. We were just standing there, and then some lady from the window just mumbled something in Deutsch, and I didn't understand a thing she said. I don't think even the locals understood her. But then all of a sudden people started moving away from the train station, and it seems all the trains for Hanover from Bad Pyrmont were cancelled. So we didn't really have any choice. We had to call a taxi, and the ticket, the fare was like 170 euros plus the 50 euros we had to pay for the train ticket. That's like over 200 euros. But it seems that we will be able to get back our money. Since as it turns out, you can't just cancel a train without announcing it. So that's positive. But getting back to the game, this is round 6 of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament. We have Baskaran Adhiban with the white pieces, and I always say Adhiban is a very exciting, exotic player. If you remember last year in the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, he played the King's Gambit with the white pieces against Wesley So. He drew that game. It was very exciting, a very nice skirmish. Here he has the white pieces against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. So let's see this game. He opens with c4, the English opening, and we have c5, so the symmetrical variation. Knight to f3, knight c6, and d4. C captures, knight captures, and knight to f6. Knight to c3, e6, we have a3, bishop to c5, and bishop to e3. Here white has plenty of options. He can push e3, he can retreat with the knight to f3, maybe even to b3 to harass the bishop on c5. Adhiban goes for bishop to e3. Knight captures on d4, bishop captures on d4, and b6 now. We have e4, bishop to b7, Mamedyarov attacks now the e4 pawn twice, and b4. Again, here Adhiban had some options of maybe playing f3, but b4 is a more active way of protecting e4. So b4 and bishop to e7. If you capture, bishop captures, queen captures, then you develop white's queen. Now the queen is also protecting e4, so this is only helping white. So after b4, bishop to e7, and here bishop to d3 by Adhiban. And this was a very interesting moment in the game. Because instead of this bishop to d3, it seems like you can push e5. And what happens if you push e5? Black has only 2 squares he can go to. He can go back to g8, this is never a good idea, and he can go to e4. What happens if knight e4? Then queen g4, knight captures on c3, and now queen captures on g7, going for the rook. After rook to f8, bishop captures on c3, and it's a very double-edged position. White does seem to be a bit better here, but it seems Adhiban was convinced that Mamedyarov was prepared to play this position with black, and he didn't want to go into any complications or preparation by Mamedyarov. So after bishop to e7, he simply continues developing. Bishop to d3, doesn't go for the fancy line. d6, we have castles by both sides, and queen to e2. Knight to d7, rook f to d1, rook to c8, rook to c1, and queen to c7. Both players just developing pieces, and knight to b5. And this was Mamedyarov's plan when he played queen to c7. His idea is queen to b8 and then queen to a8, creating a battery with this bishop on b7. So queen to b8, we have queen g4, and knight to f6, now attacking the queen. We have queen back to e2, and here we have knight back to d7, and queen back to g4. Here, Adhiban proposes a draw. If Mamedyarov would continue with knight to f6, it would lead to threefold repetition. But he goes knight to e5. He's not interested in a draw, even though he's playing with the black pieces. But there is a significant difference in rating. I think Mamedyarov is more than 100 rating points above Baskaran Adhiban, maybe even 150 points. So queen to g3 and knight to g6. We have f3, rook f to d8, bishop to f1, bishop to h4, kicking away the queen, queen to g4, and h6. Bishop to e3, now bishop back to f6, knight to d4, and rook to e8. And here, rook to e8 probably to stop Adhiban from any ideas of maybe sacrificing the knight on e6. But even if this was the case, it doesn't really work. For example, even if black pushed something as weird as a5, knight capture simply doesn't work. Even if black captures the knight after queen captures on e6, the king can simply move to h8 or h7, and it's all good for black. But the problem is, after knight captures on e6, black can simply play knight e5, kicking away the queen and only then recapturing, and then black will be better. So after knight to d4, we did have this rook here, and now knight back to b5 by Adhiban, probably hoping for Mamedyarov to play rook to d8 again, but he plays the other rook, rook c to d8. We have a4, bishop to c6, and queen to g3. Now with a triple attack on the d6 pawn. Bishop to h4, now forcing the queen to move away from g3, queen g4, and rook to e7. Bishop to d3, we have bishop to f6, f4 now, and here Adhiban is slowly but surely pressing the position. Queen to a8, now this battery is created with queen on a8 and bishop on c6, with a double attack on the e4 pawn, and we have rook to e1. With the idea that if bishop captures, queen captures, now bishop captures on b6, now there's an attack on the queen and also on the rook on d8. So after rook to e1, rook d to d7, getting the rook out of d8, and the bishop to f2. Now the rook on e1 is also protecting the e4 pawn. We have a5, and this is a good move, allowing Adhiban to capture the b6 pawn, but then he has a captures on b4, creating a passed b pawn for himself. So bishop captures, a captures, and a5 now. But Adhiban now has a very nice passed a pawn. b3, we have king to h1 and e5 now. We have f5, knight to f4, and bishop to b1. And here we have d5. And this is still anyone's game, but when you're playing black and you manage to push d5, this is move 38, you manage to push d5, you have to feel a little bit good about yourself. So e captures on d5, and now bishop captures on b5, a very interesting choice. C captures on b5, and now queen captures on d5. And now Adhiban has these two very nice passed pawns and plays bishop to e4. With the idea that if queen captures on b5, then bishop to c6, and this will attack the queen and the rook. But this actually might have been Mamedyarov's best choice. For example, queen captures, okay, bishop does come to c6, but after queen a6, bishop captures, rook captures, and Adhiban is up the exchange, but this passed b pawn is very dangerous. He's already going to b2. The bishop will be very strong on f6. After black pushes e4, the bishop will also be protecting the pawn on b2. So probably this was better for black. But okay, after bishop to e4, queen to d2, and we have a6 now. Now this passed a6 pawn is also looking very dangerous. b2 by Mamedyarov, rook to b1, and queen to b4. Attacking the b2 pawn and also protecting the b2 pawn and also attacking the b5 pawn. So bishop to c6, defending with a tempo, and now rook to d3. And now Mamedyarov's idea is rook to a3, and by playing rook to a3, he will be eyeing that a6 pawn to protect it, to not allow it to move any further, and also the queen will be eyeing the b5 pawn. But the real idea is that both of white's rooks will be forced to stay on first rank because of rook to a1. And here bishop to e3 was played by Adhiban, and this was the moment where he failed to take some initiative. Better was rook to e3. either forcing Mamedyarov to exchange or forcing him to move back, but definitely not allowing him a move like rook to a3. But okay, after rook to d3, Adhiban went for bishop to e3, and now rook to a3, and now this is a mighty looking position for black. a7, and this is one of Mamedyarov's plans by playing rook to a3. Now he plays a rook e captures on a7, giving up the exchange for a rook for a bishop and a pawn. Bishop captures, rook captures, and queen to d1. We have rook back to a3 and bishop to e4. It's very hard to find a plan here. Of course, Adhiban doesn't want to give up the b5 pawn, but what do you play here? It's very hard to come up with a plan. If you play something like queen to c2, maybe threaten to win the b pawn, you have this knight to d3, very annoying. Going for the rook on e1, also defending the pawn on b2. Rook moves, and now e4. Now this bishop comes alive. Now the e pawn is also marching forward. It's very hard to find a plan here for Adhiban. So after rook to a3, he goes bishop to e4. Mamedyarov captures the b pawn. Queen captures. Queen to d2. Now going after the b pawn. Rook to b3 defending. g3. We have knight to h3. Bishop to g2, again attacking the knight. We have knight to g5, and now h4. Forcing the knight to f3, where the bishop will capture it, and after the rook captures on f3, now rook captures on b2. Now Adhiban wins the b2 pawn. Queen to a4, rook to e3, and now e4. Rook to b8 with check, king to h7, we have king to g2, queen to c6, rook captures, pawn captures, and king to f2. And here bishop to e7 by Mamedyarov. Queen to d3 was played, and if you look at this position, Adhiban is up the exchange, but Mamedyarov has a dangerous pawn here, and it's very hard, very hard again. It doesn't matter you're up the exchange. Your king is wide open here on f2, and it's never pleasant to play this. Bishop to c5 check. King to f1, and here comes the brilliant move by Mamedyarov. Bishop to a7. Moving the bishop so the queen can come to c5 to create this very powerful battery. Also, this comes with a tempo on the rook on b8. So what do? Rook to b1 was played, and here queen to c5. And here, why doesn't Adhiban push f6? That's the question. Well, this in fact would have been the best move, but he decides not to do it. There's no immediate threat here, but after f6 and g6, you do have this weakness of the f7 pawn. So maybe this would give Adhiban some more chances. But okay, after queen c5, he immediately played king to e1. We have queen to f2 check, king to d1, and now f6, not allowing white any f6 ideas. And here, rook to b3. It's very interesting. I mean, Adhiban would be very happy if he could draw this game. Unfortunately, there are no rook to b7 ideas, you know, with some plans of sacrificing the rook on g7 and then going for a perpetual with the queen. Because simply queen captures on g3. Now defending the g7 pawn, and if you capture the bishop, then queen g1 check, and this picks up the rook on a7. So after f6, rook to b3 by Adhiban, queen g1 check, king c2, queen g2 check, king c3, and now queen can capture on g3. Better to grab a couple of more pawns. h5, we have queen to e5 check, king b4, queen to f4 check, king b5, and now f2. The threat is pawn to f1, promoting to a queen, of course. Rook to b1, queen g4. You know, why not? Rook to a1, attacking the bishop, bishop to d4, now attacking the rook, rook f1, and now queen to g2. The idea is, of course, if queen captures bishop, queen captures rook on f1 with check. So king c4, now bishop here, king goes for the bishop, bishop to e3 now, king a4, and now bishop to d2. Again, the queen can't capture it because the rook is hanging on f1, and the threat is the bishop will eventually come to e1. So king b5, bishop to e1 now the rook is trapped, king to c5, and queen to g4, attacking the pawns here. Queen captures on h5, grabbing another pawn, king to e7, we have queen to h2, queen to d8, and now queen to h3, attacking the rook. And here we have a final strike of resistance by Adhiban. He plays queen to c8. He's hoping for Mamedyarov to capture the rook on f1. It's very interesting. If he captures, then king to f7, and black is actually lost. There is no defense against queen to g7. If you try something like h5, simply queen check, king h6, and then queen captures on g7, this would have been checkmate. So after queen to c8, Mamedyarov, of course, isn't going to fall for this. Bishop to b4, king has to move, and now in this position it's actually perfectly fine to capture the rook because now the king is totally in the way. But he doesn't even go for this. Queen h5 check, king goes to d8, now queen to e2, attacking the rook, queen to c1, defending it, and now simply bishop to e1. And it was in this position that Baskaran Adhiban resigned the game, and Shakhriyar and Mamedyarov took the lead after round 6 in the Tata Steel Chess Tournament. The idea is black is attacking white's rook. White doesn't really have anything. If he tries something like rook to h1, there's actually a very simple win. Queen to e4, attacking the rook. If you move the rook anywhere on the h file, simply you promote the pawn to a queen. If you move back, rook f1, then queen d3. Checking the king, this picks up the rook. And there aren't even any tricks here. For example, after rook to h1, if maybe Adhiban would be hoping for a promotion, then there are no tricks with rook captures on h6, because simply pawn captures, and then after queen to c7 check, there are no ideas here for a perpetual check after the king moves. The white king is in the way. So yeah, after this bishop to e1 move, Baskaran Adhiban resigned the game, and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov is now in the lead with 4.5 out of 6 points after round 6. So no lead after round 6 for Anish Giri, unfortunately. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Henry May, Gregory Finley, Thierry Pitaud, Mutate Music, Luis Molina, Victor Fontes, Ahmed El Nassar, and Jason Lukish for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. Thank you all for supporting me on my new Instagram and Twitch channel. I really appreciate that as well. Like I said, I will start streaming on Twitch probably. I will try to set it up tomorrow, but if I won't be able to make it, then next week surely. And I still owe you that subscribers video with your photos and videos. I haven't forgotten about that. I will get to that as well. People have been... I actually received a lot more of the material after New Year's, so it's better to wait, for people to send more. So yeah, like I said, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Still, it'll take me a while to get back to making chess videos. It was a very relaxing week in Germany. As usual, of course, you can check all my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.